Did giants once walk this earth, or were the early humans just taller than usual? The evidence we've compiled is rather shocking.
That's massive. I can't even tell how far that is.
Colossal remains like this. Massive footprints across the world, and swords only 20 feet tall people can wield. These are the most shocking remains of giants found across different continents.
It actually looks pretty cool.
A paleontology team searching for dinosaur fossils in the Badlands of South Dakota made a discovery that completely shocked them. Buried deep in the rock were remains of a massive being. Its structure looked shockingly humanoid. Take a look at the femur, which alone was longer than a grown man's arm, and the head had human proportions, only much bigger. The team photographed and documented everything before sending the remains to a university lab in Rapid City for testing. Researchers estimated the being could have stood between 14 and 16 feet tall, but they still haven't confirmed what it really was. Adirondack find. Late last year, a hiker exploring the Adirondack Mountains in Essex County, New York, came across the most unbelievable carcass beneath a fallen tree. The remains were large, heavy, and unlike any known animal found in the area. The shape of the limbs and the strange structure immediately reminded locals of one thing: Bigfoot. After the discovery was reported, wildlife officers briefly investigated the site before the remains were transferred to a small museum in Lake Placid and displayed in a glass box. Stone hand, stone foot. A team of explorers in a canyon in southern Morocco discovered something strange near a dry riverbed. They found two fossilized shapes embedded in the ground. One looked like a massive human hand, the other like a giant foot. Both were deeply mineralized, suggesting they could be hundreds of thousands of years old or even older. The hand alone was so large that a grown man could lie across the palm. Researchers who saw the photos estimated the original body may have stood around 20 feet tall. Giant swords. Archaeologists in different parts of the world have reported the same strange finds for years. Massive swords far too large for any normal human to use. One was discovered near Toledo in Spain, in an area known for ancient battle sites. Another was found near Luxor, Egypt. A third appeared during construction work near Chengdu, China. All three were built with precision, but none could be lifted by a single person because they were unusually large and heavy. Only real giants could possibly wield them. Giant on the road. This grainy footage from an old camcorder shows a rural road somewhere in the forests of rural Siberia, Russia. A mysterious figure was walking, dragging a thick rope with it. The figure seemed to be roughly 9 feet tall and was dressed in tattered, ragged clothing. Now, those who watch this video believe that this being could have been setting a trap with that rope to catch its prey, but we don't have enough data to confirm that. One print, no trail.
Look at this. There's the, you know, when you, there's the big toe and the other 4 toes down to the small toe, down to the heel.
Near the ancient site of Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey, a geological survey team was mapping the terrain when they noticed something disturbing pressed into a slab of limestone. It looked exactly like a human footprint, but it was far too large to belong to any normal person. Every toe was clearly visible, and the print was pressed so deeply into the rock that it suggested something extremely heavy had made it. But the strangest part was this: there were no other footprints nearby. No tracks leading toward it, and none leading away. Just one massive footprint left completely alone in the stone.
What's fascinating about this is anybody that does a study of this will notice this piece sticking out here. It's like when you put your foot in mud and you pull it out, your toes will lift up a little mud where your toes were, and that's exactly what seems to have happened here.
Built into the rock. Researchers exploring a remote mountain area in northern Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is a mountainous country in southeast Europe, discovered something really strange sticking out of a cliffside. Long stone formations were protruding from the rock, and they looked almost exactly like a creature's biological structure. The structures were too symmetrical to seem natural and too evenly spaced to be caused by erosion. Scientists believe the remains may have completely mineralized over time, turning into stone from the inside out after millions of years. Samples were taken for testing, but the results were never released publicly. Mysterious troll.
Look at that.
Something just came out of the cave!
On the 5th of April, 2011, someone filming near a hillside cave in rural Norway captured footage that quickly spread online. A large, troll-like figure slowly emerged from the cave. Its body was broad and heavy, with long limbs and a hunched posture, moving with slow, deliberate weight. It did not rush or hide, as if it had no concern about being seen. Norwegian folklore has long described creatures like this living in remote caves for centuries. Most people treat those stories as myths, but the footage has made some reconsider the truth.
Did you hear that?
It's enormous.
Giant ring. During a dig at an undisclosed location in Fujairah, UAE, workers uncovered a massive ring buried deep under layers of rock. It was far too large to make sense. The surface was covered in mysterious carved symbols. Researchers noted similarities to markings linked in some religious texts to ancient civilizations, with one scholar suggesting a possible connection to Nephilim, the giant beings described in ancient scripture. The object was removed for further study. They came out together. This footage from 2001 shows a disturbing giant in the Altai Mountains, a mountain range in Mongolia. From behind a large rock formation, several giant figures slowly appeared one after another. Their clothing looked heavily worn, and like they were from the Stone Ages. The figures moved calmly in a group along a remote mountain path. The person filming stayed far away and never approached them. Ancient remains. Scientists in China recently revealed a fossil that stunned the paleontology world. Inside a block of ancient rock was a nearly complete structure of a creature over 15 feet long, dated to around 240 million years old. It had a long serpentine body, a curved spine, and a distinct skull. Researchers called it the Chinese dragon fossil. Its shape closely matches dragon descriptions found in ancient Chinese texts. Now, many Chinese believe this was one of those dragons. Serpent's Cave. The Naka Caves in Thailand have attracted visitors for years because of one strange sight. The entire cave formation, from certain angles, looks like a massive petrified snake. The rock shows scale-like patterns, a curved spine, and a body shape that tapers at both ends. Local legend says a giant serpent once lived here and turned to stone. Geologists explain it as natural erosion in sandstone, but locals have passed down the same story for generations. Mysterious spectator. Last year in April, tourists near Machu Picchu in Peru were enjoying the lake when something caught their attention. From the trees, a figure was standing completely still, watching them. Its proportions looked wrong for a human, and its body seemed grayish. They wondered if another humanoid species lived in that area, and they had just found the first proof of them. Crocodile in the cliff. Somewhere on rocky slopes in Central Africa, geologists found a strange formation carved into the mountainside. It looks exactly like a petrified crocodile, with a long snout, ridged spine, and stretched legs all locked into stone. For scale, the largest modern crocodile reaches about 20 feet, but this formation appears many times larger. Scientists say it could be natural erosion forming a coincidence, but the shape is too detailed to ignore, and everyone who sees it reports the same uneasy feeling. Kandahar giant. Earlier this year, a family from Kabul made the drive down to Kandahar for a short trip. While exploring a cave near the outskirts of the city, something walked out of the opening before they could step back. It stood roughly 12 feet tall, with a thick beard covering the lower half of its face. The family took photographs and backed away immediately. For years, American soldiers who served in Kandahar in the early 2000s claimed their patrols had encountered giants in that region. Even a full squad went missing in 2002, and the accounts that came back were never officially acknowledged. Looking at what this family photographed, it seems like the soldiers were telling the truth. North Sentinel Stranger.
You see that? Between the trees, is it standing there?
North Sentinel Island in the Bay of Bengal is home to one of the last uncontacted tribes on Earth. The people there have never allowed outsiders onto the island. So, when a traveler sailing past the island captured this footage from a safe distance, people were shocked by what appeared near the tree line. A tall, gray humanoid figure was moving along the forest edge. Its body looked vaguely human, but the strange gray skin and unusual height made it look completely unnatural. Since there's barely any real footage of the Sentinelese people, viewers were left wondering if this was one of them.
Wait, move! Like, Satamura, go!
Reptilian eggs. Road workers outside Nagpur, India, were digging several feet underground when they uncovered something bizarre buried in the soil. Dozens of large, round objects were packed tightly together, and they looked exactly like massive eggs. They were smooth, strangely uniform, and far too perfect to be ordinary rocks. As news spread, crowds gathered around the site while scientists carefully removed the objects for testing. Witnesses who saw them up close claimed the surface looked scaled, almost reptilian. Researchers believe the eggs may have belonged to an unknown giant reptilian species. The objects were later transferred to a research center in Pune for analysis. Figure on the hill.
¿Nunca lo habías visto?
Tourists visiting Teotihuacan, Mexico, noticed something strange standing on a distant hillside while taking photos of the landscape. At first, they thought it was another visitor, but when they zoomed in, the size made no sense. For the figure to be visible from that far away, it had to be extremely tall, possibly around 10 feet. What made it even creepier was that there were no trails or roads anywhere near that hill. Locals later claimed sightings like this had happened there before as well, but no one found out what it was.
Se está poniendo el suéter.
Mysterious reptilian. Security camera footage from a military observation post near Brasilia, Brazil, captured something that left officers stunned. In the distance, a massive reptilian-like creature appeared on the hill. It was large enough to be clearly visible from that distance. It seemed to be doing slow, push-up-like motions, rising and lowering its enormous body. What do you think it was? And why was it doing that? Comment below. Moving mountain. Hikers filming near a rocky mountain range in Iceland captured something they couldn't explain. The rocks near the summit began to shift slowly at first, then more clearly. From within the movement, a shape started to form. It looked like a giant figure, as if it was rising out of the stone itself after lying there for centuries. The footage cuts out before we can find out anything else. Dragon remains. Miners drilling in a coal-rich mountain range in Yunnan found these unbelievable remains. It looked like a massive head in the stone. It had a long, dragon-like snout and an unusually elongated jaw. The head size meant the rest of the body under the mountain could be much bigger. The team never confirmed how far they explored further. The mining work in that section was reportedly paused soon after. Steps for giants. The site of Ollantay Tambo in the Sacred Valley of Peru has long puzzled historians. The stone terraces carved into the mountainside are massive and extremely precise, but the steps between levels rise around 5 feet each. That height makes them impossible for a normal person to climb at all. The Inca Empire built these steps, but experts haven't been able to decide why. Dragon jaw. Explorers in a remote rock formation in southern France found a strange structure jutting out of a cliff face. It looked like a massive fossilized jaw with visible, curved, serrated teeth, shaped like those of a huge predator. A short distance away, they discovered another object. It was a large, fossilized egg with clear, scale-like patterns on its surface. The two finds appeared connected, as if they belonged to the same unknown creature. The team documented everything, and experts are still studying them. Oddly shaped heads. Burial sites in Valparaiso, Chile, have revealed some deeply unsettling remains. Researchers found massive, elongated heads with curved, tapered shapes, unlike any ordinary head. Some scientists believe these deformities could be caused by ancient practices like skull binding, which includes changing a head's shape by applying constant pressure. But others think they belong to a completely different species because such practice cannot increase the size itself. That's why more research is required to confirm anything. Horned giant. Deep inside a cave in the Table Mountain region of Iceland, one explorer captured a really creepy creature. There was a large, dark figure moving inside a cave. It had massive curved horns and a heavy goat-like body. The creature moved calmly and seemed to be staring back at the explorer, as if anticipating his next move. And since his sense of preservation kicked in, he went far, far away from the cave. Pale creature.
That's massive. I can't even tell how far that is.
A decade ago, a man exploring a coastal cave system in the Canary Islands captured something deeply disturbing on camera. Deeper inside the cave stood a tall, pale figure, but the most terrifying part was its face, because it had none. There were no eyes, no mouth, no visible features at all, just smooth skin where a face should have been. The cameraman stayed still and kept recording, seemingly hoping the figure wouldn't notice him, but then it suddenly started moving toward him. The footage cut off because he ran to outrun it at any cost, which he did.
Oh God. Oh God. No.
Door in the rock. Recently, tourists in the Ural Mountains, Russia, have found a massive opening in a cliffside. It didn't look like a natural structure caused by erosion because the opening was too precise, like a proper doorway, but it seemed to be built from something larger than an ordinary human because of how big it was. The camera couldn't record what was inside it, and so far, no tourists have been able to go in because there are no trails leading to it. So could it be built by giants? Tallest people. Historical records from different parts of the world have long described unusually tall people whose height went far beyond normal human variation. Some appear in royal documents, church archives, and military records dating back decades. In several old photographs and illustrations, these individuals stand well over 8 feet tall. Now, some researchers believe they may not have been simple medical anomalies at all. Instead, they think their genes could belong to ancient giants. Do you believe that? Comment below. Sitting in the mountain. 2 miles away from Mount Nemrut, Turkey, people have found a really strange rock formation. The formation looks exactly like a huge being sitting in front of the larger rocks. It even seems to have humanoid features like eyes and a head. Geologists say it is simply a natural erosion pattern shaped over time. But people who study ancient stories about petrified giants believe the formation may be something far stranger. They point to legends describing giant beings turned to stone after natural events. Remains in museum. Archaeologists near the ancient city of Cadiz in Spain uncovered remains unlike anything previously recorded in the region. The structures appeared human in structure, but their size was unbelievably enormous. Researchers found part of a jaw, a massive hip bone, and sections of a partially preserved face, still visible in the fossilized material. When they estimated the full height of the individual, the result came out to nearly 25 feet tall. Top of the mountain. A climber near the summit trails at Rocky Mountain National Park spotted a strange figure standing on a distant peak. At first, he thought it was another hiker, but the size looked completely wrong. The figure appeared far too tall, and there were no visible trails leading to that location. It remained perfectly still there. It didn't even have any climbing gear. So, could it be something else? Now it's time to openly discuss the most shocking giant remains found.
It actually looks pretty cool.
In 2023, YouTuber Ryan Osmond made his way into the Khao Kanap Nam Caves in Krabi, Thailand. The rock formations date back to the Permian and Carboniferous periods, which puts them at roughly 300 million years old. Long before recorded history, local people used these caves as shelter and hiding places. Ryan had gone in expecting remarkable geology. What he didn't expect was these remains of a giant being lying on the cave floor, with what appeared to be a massive serpent's spine coiled around it. The two sets of remains together created a scene that looked less like a natural occurrence and more like something frozen mid-event. Ever since, this has become one of the biggest attractions in the cave system, and it's easy to see why.
But you can see where it was made out of concrete.
Strange heads. Archaeologists in the Atacama Desert uncovered burial remains with unusually elongated skulls that exceed known human variation, even beyond documented cranial binding practices in ancient South America. The bones also contain deep carved symbols that researchers described as non-decorative and structured, more like identifiers or markings. The remains were moved to a secure facility in Santiago for analysis. Face in the stone. In the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia, a cliff formation resembles a massive human face. Eye-like hollows, a defined nose ridge, and a jaw-like lower structure are visible across multiple angles. Geologists call it pareidolia and a natural rock pattern, but others who see it think it looks like a huge giant's face that has mineralized over time. Prints in the stone. In 2018, archaeologists at Lake Titicaca in Bolivia uncovered unusual impressions in a rock shelf. The single handprint could be explained as a normal human hand pressed into softer rock and dragged it down before it hardened into stone. But nearby were multiple footprints, far too large to match human anatomy, with wide spacing and deep pressure marks. That's why they had to analyze in detail what had caused them, but still haven't reached a conclusion. Ancient beast. In layers of ancient rock near the Mojave Desert in California, scientists found remains of an unknown creature that does not match any known animal group, like reptiles, mammals, or birds. Its body shape and size suggest it lived in a much larger environment than anything seen today. Some researchers have said it may have existed at the same time as ancient giants, and they must have hunted these beasts for sustenance. The remains are now stored at a research facility in Barstow, California, and are not on public display. Heavy head. Last year, in a site in Almaty, Kazakhstan, researchers found a mysterious head. Now, although it was the remains of a giant, let me remind you that discovery was still shocking. The head weighed nearly 33 pounds. Scans also showed an internal structure that does not match any known living organism. Scientists have avoided strong public claims, but several who handled the specimen reportedly said it does not match anything currently recorded, and its density suggests a completely different biological structure. Leviathan remains. You won't believe what this beachgoer found in Kalangut Beach, North Goa, 2 years ago. He found remains with a totally unusual structure. It was too large to view fully from one angle, with a massive spine curve and ribcage shape stretching along the shore. The scale reminded him of the Leviathan described in ancient texts, so he contacted the authorities. They took the remains away for analysis, but he didn't hear from them again. It seemed like they wanted to hide the remains. Still blinking. A scientific team working near the Ross Ice Shelf in Antarctica reported finding a large object embedded deep in the ice during a routine survey. The shape resembled a mammoth, with a massive body and thick limbs visible through the frozen layers. Mammoths are believed to have gone extinct around 4,000 years ago. While filming the structure, the team observed what appeared to be a slow blink from the eye, which meant there was still some form of minimal biological activity. The team kept distance, documented the site, and did not attempt to disturb or thaw the specimen. Its current condition remains unknown. Deep trench remains. A deep-sea diving team exploring the Manchones Reef, Isla Mujeres, Mexico, recorded massive remains on the seabed. The remains had a structure far larger than any known marine animal fossil. Scientists on board ruled out known reptile lineages based on bone shape and scale. In internal discussions, some researchers compared the structure to the Leviathan described in ancient texts, a creature said to exist in deep waters across multiple unrelated cultures. The remains were too deep to recover and were only documented on video, which has not been publicly released. Ancient beaver. The beavers we are familiar with today, the ones building dams in ponds across North America, are actually the smaller descendants of something far more impressive. Ancient beaver fossils recently displayed in a natural history museum in Toronto show a species that stood nearly 8 feet tall and weighed close to 200 pounds. Unlike modern beavers that shape small ponds and streams, these ancient ones would have been capable of reshaping entire river systems. They lived in North America during the Ice Age and are believed to have gone extinct roughly 10,000 years ago after major climate shifts. Face imprint. In the hill country outside of San Marcos, Texas, a rock formation has been confusing hikers and geologists alike for years. The surface of a large, flat expanse of stone bears what looks like a massive face pressed into it from above, as if something enormous fell from a great height and landed face first into the earth, and the stone hardened around the impression over time. Geologists who have visited the site note the formation is unlike typical erosion patterns in the region. Do you think it proves that giants were real? Unearthed remains.
Now to the story of a sea monster with 130 razor-sharp teeth, the biting force of a T-Rex, and a skull measuring 2 meters. It might sound like the stuff of legend, but this creature really did exist around 75 million years ago, and it was called pliosaur.
Off the coast of Dorset, England, during construction work on a coastal protection project, engineers struck something unexpected buried in the sea cliff. What they uncovered was immediately handed over to paleontologists, who confirmed the remains belonged to a sea creature of massive size. The skull alone measured over 3 feet in length. The full animal, based on skeletal proportions, was estimated to have stretched past 30 feet. It predated the dinosaurs by millions of years, placing it in an era when the creatures sharing the planet were operating on a completely different scale. The remains are currently held at the Natural History Museum in London, where they're still being studied.
What makes this unique is it's complete. So the lower jaws and the upper skull are meshed together as it would be in life. To find that, I think worldwide, there's hardly any specimens ever found to that level of detail. And if they are, a lot of the bits are missing. Whereas this, although it's slightly distorted, it's got every bone present. It's one of the best fossils I've ever worked on. I'll never probably work on another one.
Watching from inside. A tourist driving through the Rocky Mountain Range near Estes Park, Colorado, stopped to record the scenery along the road when this caught their attention. In a natural opening on the mountainside, barely visible in the shadow but unmistakably there, was a large humanoid figure. It was facing the road, looking directly at the car. The opening in the rock was big enough to suggest whatever was inside had substantial size, and the posture was alert, not accidental. Park rangers who were shown the video said the area was inaccessible and uninhabited, which makes it more mysterious. Strange head. Recently, many tourists in Meteora, Greece made a shocking discovery. There in the distance, they found a strange structure between the 2 massive rocks. It looked just like the remains of a head. It clearly had eyes, nose, and a mouth. The tourist who shared this video also explained that they'd been standing nearly 900 feet away from that site, which meant the head had to be huge to be visible from that distance. It clearly belonged to a giant. But the real question is, how did that head even end up there? And for how long has it been there? Pilot's aerial sighting. A pilot conducting an aerial ecological survey over unmapped forest territory in the Brazilian Amazon noticed something unusual on one of his passes. Standing in a clearing with no structures, no roads, and no signs of settlement nearby were 2 tall humanoid figures. The pilot estimated their height was between 9 and 11 feet. No gear, no tools, nothing around them. He circled once at a safe altitude, but didn't attempt to land. The area sits within a zone known to border the territory of several uncontacted indigenous groups, but no known tribe in that region is described at that height. He filed a report with Brazil's National Indian Foundation and has received no response. Unidentified discovery.
What's very interesting to me is that they're drying some corn at the same time. And I wouldn't think you'd want to put something alien next to a food resource.
In 2011, a farmer from a small village in Russia stepped outside after hearing a loud noise nearby. When he went to check, he found something that made no sense. Lying on the ground were remains that didn't match any known creature. The head was oddly shaped, the torso was twisted, and the limbs looked completely wrong. Strangely, it already appeared fossilized, as if it had been there for a very long time, but no one had ever seen it before. The whole village was unsettled by it. Scientists were called in, but identifying it would require proper testing. Antarctic Kraken. A ship passing through Antarctic waters filmed something lodged inside a cave, carved into the face of a massive iceberg. A central body, thick and rounded, with multiple long limbs radiating outward and curling at the tips. A colossal tentacled sea creature described in Norwegian maritime tradition since the 12th century, reported by sailors as large enough to be mistaken for an island. What the video most likely captured was a giant squid or colossal squid, which many sailors have confused to be a kraken, since some have reached unbelievable sizes. Quarry confrontation.
Jesus, that's real. No way.
Construction workers at a snow-covered quarry site filmed something that had no place being in an active work site. A large winged creature landed in the middle of the quarry floor, and a massive dark figure, broad-shouldered, upright, unmistakably Bigfoot in build, moved straight toward it. What followed was a confrontation between two things that aren't supposed to exist.
Nope, I'm out. Go, go, go!
The winged creature held its ground initially, but a few seconds in, the winged creature had broken away and was moving across the quarry. The channel that posted this footage labels itself AI enhanced, which is the most honest thing about the clip. Blizzard Bigfoot. A bystander with a phone caught a figure moving through a whiteout blizzard on a snow-covered mountain slope, and it was not on skis, not in ski gear, and not moving the way any human moves through chest-deep snow. The figure was heavily built and covered in fur. It moved through the blizzard with a stride that covered ground at a pace no person in those conditions could sustain. A ski resort caught in the background placed this at an active mountain facility, which makes the sighting harder to explain. Crack reveals monster. A helicopter crew flying over the Arctic filmed something that cannot be real. A deep crack had split open in the ice shelf below them, and inside it, partially visible through the gap, was a large, serpentine shape. As the camera kept rolling, the shape was seen moving, coiling like a snake. But snakes are not found here, and no serpent exists that is this freaking big. The Arctic ice shelf is one of the least explored environments on Earth. Beneath it lies the Arctic Ocean, which reaches depths of over 5,000 meters and has been surveyed by submersibles in only a fraction of its total area. So maybe it is our first possible sighting. What do you think? Before you think the next clip is a bit different from what we have shown so far, I must say, these are bizarre clips, and in this channel, Weird or Wild, we are aiming to bring you not only the best content, but also authentic information. So keep watching to find out more. Winged figure. A video recorded during heavy snowfall in Antarctica captured something that people still cannot fully explain. Standing near the edge of a frozen mountain was a tall, white figure, almost completely blending into the storm around it. Long wings stretched out behind it. The figure stayed motionless for a few seconds while the wind pushed snow across the mountain, and then suddenly it lifted upward into the sky. Giant hand.
Oh, this hand is heavy. I don't know, is it a hand or glove?
During a remote trek across a frozen landscape, an explorer noticed something massive protruding from the ice nearby. As he moved closer, the shape started resembling a hand. Not human-sized either. Huge. Thick fingers sealed solid beneath layers of ice that looked ancient. He carefully chipped around the object, trying to expose more of it, but nothing else appeared nearby. And the strangest part was that nobody could even say for certain what it actually was.
It's a very creepy hand.
Ice borehole. Researchers in Antarctica once carried out what should have been a simple experiment. They dropped a chunk of ice into a borehole drilled deep into the frozen ground just to hear how long it would take to fall. Instead, they heard something nobody expected. As the ice disappeared into the hole, a strange whistling sound echoed back upward. Sharp, metallic, almost like something squeezing through a narrow space deep below the surface. Then suddenly, the sound cut off completely. One of the scientists later said it didn't sound natural at all. The borehole stretched over a mile into ancient, untouched ice, reaching layers that had remained sealed for thousands of years. Shocking reptilianoids. You won't believe what a scientist recorded in Antarctica. He'd gone there to study the rate of ice loss due to climate change. That's when he noticed these two massive creatures in the distance. They had hump-like shapes on their backs, odd heads, and long lizard-like tails. The way they moved almost made it seem like they were trying not to be seen. The scientist could not tell if they were a hidden species, or maybe something that escaped from an experimental genetic lab nearby. Either way, he quietly recorded them without drawing their attention. Cryptid sighting. On February 3rd, 2019, when a man went to Yukon, Canada during winter, he noticed something strange on a ridge. An enormous entity had uprooted an entire tree. Take a look. He was shocked and curious, so he followed the trail to see what could have done that. Then he saw it, a massive, dark creature walking slowly through the snow. The man filmed the creature from afar and shared the video online, thinking he'd seen a real Bigfoot. That's when a viewer shared his own clip from near Kluane National Park. He had been paragliding when he encountered the cryptid on a crest, and he'd barely escaped it. Yeti sighting. When this footage from 2003 was first uploaded on the internet in 2011, it caused a storm online. It shows a strange ape-like creature covered in thick white fur, with a dark face that stood out against the white fur. The creature looked massive and stocky, moving slowly through the snow. Its appearance was so similar to a Yeti that viewers were stunned. However, a few weeks later, the original video was deleted from every platform, but after 3 years, a small part of it later resurfaced on Reddit. Black ice. A team exploring a snow-covered area noticed what looked like an ordinary hole in the frozen ground and decided to investigate further. Dark liquid started rising through the snow. The moment they got closer, they noticed the smell. Pungent smell, nothing like water at all. What they had uncovered was crude oil leaking near the surface in a remote frozen area where nobody expected to find it. And that discovery immediately raised questions because oil deposits like this are usually buried far underground, not seeping through snow and ice out in the open. Icy monster. Back in 1996, a group of mountain climbers navigating the Himalayan mountains in Nepal had a spine-hilling encounter they believe was with a Yeti. What made this sighting so compelling was the creature's unusually long arms, distinctively different from a human's, because trying to haul a bulky, form-fitting costume up those icy slopes seems nearly impossible for a person, especially just for a prank. With sub-zero temperatures, deep snow, and avalanches, this is no place for jokesters. Not just that, I have got another compelling evidence of a mighty figure strolling through the snow-filled mountains that proves their existence. Frozen alive. Researchers working on the Antarctic ice pulled something out of a block of ice that had no business being alive. A pale, pink-skinned creature with a blunt face and dark eyes stared back at them from inside the ice as they chipped away at the surface. Once fully extracted, it sat in their hands, small, intact, and apparently unharmed by however long it had spent encased in glacial ice. Some even called this a fur seal pup, likely an Antarctic or Weddell seal, both of which are native to the region and occasionally become trapped in ice formations. But do you agree with this? Comment down below. Mountain Sasquatch.
There's this little black dot walking in the middle of the snow.
A hiker filming from a mountain trail in the Cascade Range, Washington, caught something far above the tree line. The figure was dark and enormous, while moving at a pace no human being could move in that much snow. What made it harder to dismiss was the scale. The creature dwarfed every rock formation and tree cluster around it, and the hiker was clearly stunned. He kept the camera on it as it covered the ground and disappeared over the ridge. The footage was shot from a significant distance, which is consistent with almost every credible Bigfoot sighting on record. Researchers have long noted that the clearest encounters happen at range.
If that was a human, why would you walk up that ridge or that snow line? Why would you not just go straight down?
Tree line creature. A resident in a rural, wooded area filmed what appeared to be a large, mysterious figure in the bare winter trees at the edge of their property. The figure was tall enough that it cleared the upper branches of the surrounding undergrowth and wide enough across the shoulders. The channel that posted the footage, Squatch Watchers, specializes in this exact category of sighting. Close to home, suburban encounters with Bigfoot. The BFRO, Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, has documented hundreds of reports from properties bordering forest in the American Midwest and Northeast, where residents describe figures standing at the tree line after dark, livestock behaving strangely, and large tracks found in snow. Massive Yeti. On a snow-covered mountain slope surrounded by pine trees, a large white figure was captured on camera. Its coat was so pale, it was almost invisible against the snow. The footage caught it mid-movement, clearly bipedal. The Yeti, known in Nepali tradition as the Yete, has been described across the Himalayan and Central Asian mountain ranges for centuries by Sherpa communities. They don't treat it as mythology, but as a genuine hazard of high-altitude travel. In one frame, it appeared to be dragging or carrying something across the ground. Then it moved behind a tree and was gone. Snow Walker. In 1992, deep in the Himalayan mountain range, someone with a camera filmed an unknown figure moving alone across a snow-covered slope. The footage is grainy, the way everything from that era is, but the shape is unambiguous. It walked on two legs, covered in dark fur, large enough to clear the surrounding area easily. It was also moving through the high-altitude snowfield entirely comfortably in conditions that would push humans to their physical limit. This footage became known as the Snow Walker, one of the oldest and most referenced pieces of Yeti evidence on record. Bluff Creek Monster. This is the one that started everything. On October 20th, 1967, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were riding horses along Bluff Creek in Northern California when one of the horses reared in panic. Patterson grabbed his camera, hit the ground running, and filmed a large, dark, bipedal creature walking away from the creek bed. It turned once to look directly at the camera before disappearing into the trees. That 16mm film clip has been studied, debated, and analyzed for over 50 years by primatologists, biomechanics specialists, forensic anthropologists, film experts, and costume designers. The creature in the footage, now named Patty by researchers, stands approximately 2 meters tall, covered in dark brown fur, and walks with a gait that combines human and non-human characteristics in a way that has never been successfully replicated. St. Elmo Sasquatch. In In 2012, footage filmed near St. Elmo, Illinois, captured a large figure moving alone across a snow-covered clearing at the edge of a tree line. The clip was later slowed down, cleaned, and zoomed in, and what that process revealed was absolutely shocking. The figure moved with the same hip-rolling, arm-swinging, forward-leaning stride that biomechanics researchers have flagged in every credible Bigfoot sighting. Illinois doesn't have wilderness corridors large enough to shelter an undiscovered primate population. No remote mountain ranges, no vast stretches of roadless terrain. And yet Illinois has logged over 200 reported Bigfoot encounters, making it one of the top 10 states for sightings in the continental United States. Hidden chamber.
These statues are incredible. We're still trying to figure out who made them and why they're hidden here.
A content creator from the channel Cybervisions filmed themselves entering what appeared to be a restricted section of an ancient structure. The narrow corridor was lined with hieroglyphics. Carved directly into the stone above the corridor were unmistakable circular disc shapes. The ancient astronaut theory. The idea that extraterrestrial beings made contact with early human civilizations and influenced their architecture, religion, and technology has been applied to certain monuments like the one you're seeing.
I can't believe what we're seeing, guys. That explains a lot.
Shocking video claim. This video is a cinematic sequence showing researchers in red jackets entering a massive black structure in the ice, discovering Egyptian-style carvings inside, then encountering gray alien figures standing in the ice, and finally alien bodies preserved in oval pods. But all of it is clearly AI-generated. Found in ice. In 1967, a carnival showman named Frank Hansen began touring county fairs and shopping malls across the American Midwest with something he kept frozen in a block of ice inside a refrigerated coffin. People paid to peer through the glass at what appeared to be a large, hairy, humanoid figure, roughly 6 feet tall, heavily built, with dark matted fur covering its entire body, a flattened nose, and one arm bent awkwardly. One of its eyes appeared to have been missing. In short, someone had hunted it down. Word eventually reached Ivan Sanderson and Bernard Heuvelmans, two of the most respected cryptozoologists of the 20th century. They arranged to examine it in December 1968, spending 3 days studying it through the ice at Hansen's farm in Minnesota. Heuvelmans was so convinced by what he saw that he formally described it as a new species in a Belgian scientific journal, naming it Homo pongoides. Sanderson contacted the Smithsonian Institution, which requested that the FBI investigate whether a homicide had occurred because the specimen was genuine. Then Hansen suddenly claimed the original specimen had been replaced by a latex model and the real one returned to its anonymous owner, a California millionaire whose identity he refused to reveal. Frozen Bigfoot. A man filmed himself outside a rural barn somewhere in the American Northeast, standing behind what he claimed was the thawed body of a Bigfoot that had been frozen for 65 years.
My father acquired the Bigfoot September 23, 1953. And when they acquired them, they were so immense that they had no other choice, with most of them, to dissect them, cut them up so that they could get them out of the swamp. Now, this one in particular isn't that big, but it is still a very large creature.
The mass on the table was enormous, easily the size of a large bear, but shaped differently, covered in dense, matted, reddish-brown fur that had partially decomposed. Up close, the camera found teeth, large, yellowed, and distinctly primate in structure.
Now you can see the face. They always seem to look similar, and they always sort of like have that grin. I'm not really sure why they're grinning like that.
The man presented it calmly, without theatrics, pointing out specific anatomical features as he moved around the body. Frozen face.
I got a very strong signal. What?
A man walking through deep snow spotted something strange sticking out beneath the ice and decided to clear it away out of curiosity. At first, it looked like nothing more than a frozen rock buried in the ground. But the more ice he chipped away, the more unsettling the shape became. Underneath was a pale face locked inside the ice. motionless, heavy features, thick brow, hollow-looking eyes, and now here's where it gets strange. The face didn't resemble anything modern at all. The structure looked rough and oversized, almost primitive, which is exactly why people online immediately started comparing it to a Yeti.
What the is that thing?
Ice flowers. Something unusual appeared across Salem Lake in China after temperatures dropped low enough for the entire surface to freeze over. Covering the ice were delicate frost formations that looked almost exactly like flowers scattered across the lake. Tiny crystal patterns stretched outward in soft, layered shapes, like they had been drawn onto the surface overnight. And of all things, they weren't carved or placed there by anyone. They formed naturally from moisture in the air under extremely specific weather conditions. Everything had to be perfectly still and cold. Ice cave. During an expedition through West Antarctica, a group of explorers came across something in the ice that immediately felt wrong. Cut into the frozen landscape was a massive dark opening, with edges so smooth it barely looked natural compared to everything surrounding it. As they got closer, cold air pushed outward from inside the cave while the team filmed the entrance from a distance. And honestly, the deeper they looked into it, the stranger it became. Nobody could explain what created it or how far it extended beneath the ice. The team documented the location and eventually left the area with more questions than answers. Then, 2 weeks later, the Australian explorer leading the discovery was found unalive. Frozen space rock.
Field Museum made a very cool discovery. She recently returned to Chicago after finding a massive meteorite in the Antarctic.
It weighs nearly 17 pounds and could hold secrets about the beginning of our solar system. Sarah Maki sat down with the scientists to hear about the remarkable find.
Scientists working in Antarctica recently spotted something unusual resting alone on the ice. A dark meteorite weighing around 17 pounds, roughly the size of a cantaloupe. The discovery was made by researcher Maria Valdez from the Field Museum in Chicago.
This is the first time that I've found one myself, and that, of course, makes it all the more exciting.
And even though this type of meteorite is considered fairly common, it still carried material dating back to the early formation of the solar system. And honestly, Antarctica might be the perfect place for a discovery like this. The freezing temperatures and dry conditions preserve these objects for incredibly long periods, which is why meteorites stand out so clearly against the endless white ice.
Valdez's team also found 4 smaller meteorites, but the big one is now in Belgium.
Yeti crabs. Deep beneath the freezing waters near Antarctica, scientists found something that barely looked real at first glance. Covering the ocean floor were massive groups of pale Yeti crabs clustered together in complete darkness, more than 2,600 meters underwater. Their bodies looked almost fuzzy under the cameras, ghostly white against the black water surrounding them. And now, here's the unsettling part. There weren't just a few of them. There were thousands, packed tightly together in a place where sunlight never reaches. Honestly, the entire scene looked less like Earth and more like footage from another planet. New virus unleashed? Of all the things found under the ice, this one might be the most unsettling. French scientists recently revived a 48,500-year-old virus from deep within the Siberian permafrost. Dubbed a zombie virus, it's one of the oldest and most potent ever discovered. The creepy part? It was still able to infect amoebas after all that time. But before you panic, most scientists say there's no need to worry. This virus isn't a threat to humans. Still, it's a fascinating and slightly eerie reminder of what's hidden beneath the ice.
Can you explain how such viruses can survive for millions of years?
Well, as you were saying there, because the permafrost is like a giant deep freezer, a very low temperature deep freezer.
Frozen pyramids?
Recently, there have been a number of reports of pyramids, huge great pyramids in Antarctica. They jut out of the ice and snow. They look perfect, just like those in Egypt.
For years, researchers dismissed the idea of anything man-made existing in Antarctica. Then, satellite imagery changed that conversation. Images captured over the Antarctic landscape revealed a formation so geometrically precise that natural erosion alone struggles to account for it. 4 flat, symmetrical faces rising to a single point, each side stretching almost 1.5 miles, dwarfing anything ever built in Egypt. Geologists call it a pyramidal peak, a known phenomenon caused by glacial erosion from multiple sides. But that explanation gets harder to lean on when you factor in what else has surfaced. In 2017, core samples confirmed that Antarctica was once a temperate rainforest, warm enough to sustain life. Ancient Polynesian oral traditions describe ancestors sailing toward a frozen southern land. All right, pause. We haven't even gotten to the part that broke the internet, and that's coming up next. Subscribe now so you catch every second of it.
Similar to something that you would find in a rainforest, in a temperature regime that was similar to what we today know from northern Italy. And finding that on the Antarctic continent, that was the most exciting thing.
Eternal slumber. She looked like she was sleeping, resting peacefully in the cold, but Sasha was anything but ordinary. This young woolly rhino had been stuck in the ground for over 34,000 years. Her fur was still soft and pale, her ears kept their shape, and her tiny legs were tucked under her just right. Sasha was about the size of a small pony, and seeing her like this made it easy to picture her once walking across frozen grasslands with her mom. Her body stayed in such amazing shape that experts could study nearly everything, even her skin and soft parts. Sasha wasn't just a fossil, she was a quiet memory of a world long gone. Frozen find.
The trunk is in good condition. Nothing's happened in transit. If we lose too much water, it will be harder to study.
Lyuba was just a month old when her story froze in time, and her discovery in Siberia's icy soil brought that story back. Found in 2007 by a reindeer herder and his sons, she was in unbelievable condition. Her soft fur, tiny trunk, and even her milk-filled tummy were still there, giving us a rare peek into the Ice Age. Experts think she ran into trouble while crossing a muddy river with her herd, but thanks to the frozen ground, her little body stayed protected, helping researchers learn about what she ate, how she lived, and how healthy she was.
Here we go.
We come from the tail.
Oh, you can see all the mineralization,
Yes, it's mineralization.
inside the bones.
Intestines.
This is the liver?
Every bone is perfect.
Yeah. Wow, that's very promising.
Ice Age bison. Deep in Siberia, researchers made an incredible find. Blue Babe, a young bison perfectly frozen in the ice for over 40,000 years. What made him so special wasn't just how long he'd been there, but how well his body held up. His fur, hooves, and even some soft tissue stayed in great shape, letting scientists study him up close. His name, Blue Babe, came from the bluish tint on his fur, which happened because of the way he was preserved. Thanks to this rare find, experts learned more about the animals that once wandered the cold, ancient lands, giving us a small but powerful glimpse into a totally different world. Mind-blowing footage.
About 35 years ago, found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent.
This footage might just break your brain. A massive ice wall, so tall and endless that a whole civilization could be found here. And that's exactly what an American naval officer believed. Captured by an explorer, the video shows a towering wall of ice stretching for miles across barren land. What's wild is how it matches up with the flat Earth theory, a disc-shaped world with this ice wall acting like the edge that holds our oceans in, like the rim of a bowl. But this isn't the first time someone saw something strange in the icy unknown. Back in the 1940s and 50s, Admiral Richard E. Byrd, a respected American naval officer, led Operation High Jump and other missions to Antarctica. He reported finding a land beyond the South Pole as big as the United States. That wasn't just ice, but seemed strangely habitable. Warm areas, mountains, maybe even life. So now, With this new video showing a massive ice wall, people are asking, was Bird trying to tell us something all along? What else is hidden behind that wall, and why have we never been told?
We've found enough of coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while.
Real Bigfoot encounter. An alleged real Bigfoot was caught on camera in Russia back in 2015. The footage captured the exact moment this hiker came across a strange creature running through the woods. At first, it does seem like a human in a costume, but when it jumps across the fallen trunk, the arm length and its shape disprove any such assumptions. So could it be that this person actually managed to capture a real Bigfoot? The footage is really compelling. Proof of evolution? This one's a head-scratcher. A fisherman filmed a fish standing on its fins like it had legs. The fish, a carp, was on the ice, gasping for air like it was trying to survive out of water. The video got a lot of attention because it's so unusual. Some joked that fish might be evolving. Scientists might have an explanation, but it's still pretty wild to see. Alien in ice.
Собака хули унюхалась.
A video surfaced showing what looks like a small alien, about 2 or 3 feet tall, with a big head and long, thin limbs. The caption claimed, "Your government is lying to you about UFOs and aliens." The video got over 1 million views, but most people think it's fake. For one, you can hear laughter in the background. Also, the alien is supposedly from a crash, but there's no sign of a spaceship. While it's fun to imagine, this one's probably not the real deal. Glacier of Doom.
It's an outlier, and so we learn from those extremes, right? It's different than anything else we know.
So there's actually stuff living in the dirt.
Oh yeah,
in the dirt and in the lakes, in the lake ice, in the rocks.
There's actually worms in the dirt.
glaciers.
There's microscopic worms, nematodes.
Antarctica is full of surprises, and one of the most striking is the so-called bleeding glacier. When explorers first saw it, they were shocked by its red color and thought global warming might be to blame. But after some investigation, they realized the unusual hue was caused by the iron-rich water from a hidden lake. When this water meets the air, it turns red, creating a stunning and eerie sight. It's a reminder of how complex and mysterious our planet can be.
What got me interested at first was this notion of how life survives below ice because of other worlds in our solar system. Places like Mars, Europa, or Enceladus. These are going to be really cold places.
And now, let's move on to our open discussion. Need your opinions on this one, fam? Near the coordinates 74 degrees south, 163 degrees east, deep within an Antarctic glacier field, an ice explorer came across something that immediately stopped him cold. Buried beneath layers of thick blue ice was what looked like the eye of a massive creature. As he carefully cleared away more ice, the details became impossible to ignore. The eye remained shut the entire time, and around it were visible eyelashes frozen into the ice. Some viewers believed it resembled the eye of a whale or another large marine animal somehow trapped beneath the glacier long ago. But others pointed out the eyelashes looked unusually pronounced, almost too human-like, which immediately pushed the footage into much stranger territory online. The explorer kept brushing away the frost, trying to reveal more of the creature underneath, but the clip ended before the full shape was ever uncovered. Smash that like button and subscribe to WOW for your weekly dose of weird and wild.